Good morning. Today is January the 22nd, 2016. This update has been long overdue, but I finally have a little bit of time to do a video of my labor and delivery story. It's going to be kind of long and drawn out, and hopefully I get all the details that I need. So, without further ado, let's get started. Please excuse how I look. It's a very rainy, gloomy morning, and it's been like this for the past couple days. So I have been going to school at nights and, up all day with baby girl. So, the last video, I think I left off, I think it was like, I can't remember, it was 30 something weeks. I'm not sure. But let me verify just so I don't know. I don't want to give y'all the wrong information. So bear with me. So, the last video, I think I was basically just letting you know what was going on with me from, I think, weeks 30 to 36, 37, I want to say. Nothing had really changed. I'm sorry, weeks 31 through 39 is the last video I updated you on. Okay, so I'll pick up from there. Okay, week 39, I was having the same symptoms: frequent urination, extreme lower back and vaginal pressure, contractions. I hadn't dilated. I was only 1 centimeter and 80% effaced, which was very frustrating because I was just like, I had been 1 centimeter for about 2 weeks, hadn't progressed at all. I was only progressing in reference to my cervix thinning out. So I had made two trips to the emergency room because I was in extreme pain. I was having contractions, quite unbearable. My wife was just like, it's time. And every single time I was being sent home. Okay, so fast forward 39 weeks and 2 days. I have, my normal doctor's appointments on Tuesdays where I go see my regular OB and then I go see the perinatologist. Okay, while visiting my OB, they take your vitals, check to see if you had dilated or anything like that, and then listen to the fetal heart rate and check for contractions. Okay, after all of that is said and done, I had my pressure went up. I still hadn't gained any weight. Her heartbeat was absolutely normal, fine, and I was having contractions. So I asked him, what options did I have, because I did want to have a natural delivery. What could I do to speed the process up? Okay, he told me that he could start me on Cervidil, but depending on how big she was, would determine whether or not I would be able to have a natural delivery or I would have to have a C-section. He said if she weighed 8 pounds or more, I would have to have a C-section because my pelvis was too small that she would not be able to fit through. It would cause complications to the point where I would have to have a C-section anyway. So he was like, go to your next appointment based on what the perinatalogist says, because it was my measurement appointment, would determine whether or not I would have a natural birth or a cesarean. So got to the next appointment, excited because I get to see her like every week, as well as get, her measurements, how much she possibly weighs, etc., etc. Well, everything was great. She passed 8 out of 8 tests that they performed, as far as practice breathing, fluids, her heart, looking at her spine, etc., etc., right? So I was like, okay, I'm curious to know how much she weighs, or a guess as to how much she weighs. Their guess was 7 pounds, 11 ounces. So that was close enough to 8. So after the appointment, I contacted my OB to let him know the measurements of, what they said. He told me to come in at 9 o'clock the following morning, which was the 25th of November. Went in at 9 o'clock. He asked me, he's like, hey, what do you want to do? She's pretty close to 8 pounds. If we wait any longer, you're not going to be able to deliver naturally. It's going to be complications, and I don't want to have to break her collarbone just so that she could fit through the birthing canal. So we decided that we were going to have a cesarean. He went and prepped my paperwork and everything to have my cesarean at 1:30 that day. Okay. I am taken down to the labor and delivery floor, and not taken out, I was walked to, because it's on the same floor. So walked to labor and delivery, and my heart starts to race. I start to get nervous. I am crying because I'm like, oh, this is finally happening. I'm excited. I finally get to meet my little princess. So they check me in. I do the admissions process, me and my wife. And I tell my wife, go home, get our bags. I'll see you when you get back. Because it was, we had a while. It was 9 o'clock in the morning. We had a while until 1:30 for the cesarean. Okay. She went home, brought every bag in sight, literally. Took a shower and everything. She came back with cameras galore. And I'm sitting here like, we don't need all of this. So I'm sitting here, waiting for the cesarean to start. Now, prior to the cesarean, they give me an IV drip. I signed paperwork in reference to the procedure and my admission process, like finishing up my admission process to the hospital, as well as they're prepping me as far as shaving wise. Now I was a little embarrassed about that because I didn't get to shave or anything. Not like I could see anything, but it was just like, wow, somebody else is shaving me. Was a little awkward. And after all of that was done, the anesthesiologist came in there to basically brief me on how, the procedure was going to go, how she was going to administer the epidural, and how I should feel, etc., etc. She also told me before the epidural, they had to give me a pill, not a pill, I'm sorry, They had to give me, yes, it was a pill. That is correct. They did give me a pill, as well as giving me something in my IV. It's like an antibiotic. Um, so I did that, and it basically turned into a waiting game because it was still early. While waiting for my surgery, I was having contractions. Mind you, I've been having contractions since about 7.5, 8 months. So I had kind of gotten used to having contractions, not Braxton Hicks, real live contractions. So I'm hooked up to the monitor and I'm just rolling with the emotions, and I'm having contractions every minute on the minute. And they're like, "Do you feel it?" And I'm like, "Oh, I feel it, but that's something normal, something I deal with on a daily basis." So they were thinking that, the contractions would eventually stop, but they didn't. They kept coming. And after a while, they start to get like stronger and stronger and stronger. Well, 1:30 came, and I'm sitting here like, "Oh, it's almost time. It's almost time." But my doctor came in and was like, "It's going to be a little bit longer." They had a emergency on the floor where a mother and a baby was in distress, and that they needed the operating room at the moment. I was like, "Okay, no problem. I'm not in a big rush. Hey, I'm just chilling." So, back at the waiting game, I start to allow my mind to wander, and I did get nervous. So I'm calling, like my friends and my sister and my mother and my father. And I'm like, "Hey, can y'all say a prayer with me? Just pray that everything will be all right." So they prayed with me and everything, and I was at ease. 3 o'clock rolls around, and they come and get me. Me and my wife walk to the operating room. They was like checking, make sure I didn't have any jewelry on, and I felt bad because I take my wedding ring off. So I took my wedding ring off, and I told the nurse, "Can you please send this to my wife? I don't want my ring to get lost in transit of doing anything, from y'all moving my stuff from the triage room to my my what do you call it? My room after I give birth." It's just a particular name, and I can't even think of it. But she did that. Walked in the operating room, sat on the table, and the anesthesiologist started prepping my back with the betadine, cleaning my back and everything. And she talked me through the epidural, which I was terrified of. I do not like needles. I did not want the epidural, but in order to have a cesarean, you have to have an epidural. So, the epidural was not bad at all. It felt like a minor pinch. Nothing that was like definitely where you scream or anything like that. Nothing like that. Okay. So, once the epidural was administered, my legs began to get warm and tingly. And they were like, "That's how you know that the epidural is working." After a while, I didn't feel my legs, period. I couldn't feel my legs all the way up until like a little bit above my belly button. So when they realized that I couldn't feel anything, that's when they was like, "Okay, calling out the time of what time they started." They strapped my legs to the table and put on a blood pressure cuff on my right arm, pull the drape up and everything, and then they let my wife come in. While on that table, I got nauseous, and I asked them, I was like, "Can you please tilt me to the left so that if I do throw up, I I can get it in the little kidney shaped bucket that they have. So they tilted me a little bit to the left, and I was absolutely fine. Didn't throw up or anything. Honestly, the cesarean, it seemed like it was taking forever because I had actually fell asleep on the table. Literally, I had fell asleep because I was so tired. I had fell asleep. I had started to snore, and I had caught myself, and I woke up. And I was like, oh my God, I fell asleep. And they were laughing at me. So, he kept saying, oh, I'm so glad that we decided to do the cesarean. We're so glad to do the cesarean. And once he got my uterus open, he was like, today was the best day that you ever decided to do the cesarean, because she had a bowel movement inside. And he said it looked like it had been multiple bowel movements because it was so much. So thank God that, we decided to do it then, because I didn't want her to inhale the meconium. So they pull her out, and I instantly start to cry. My wife gets up and runs over to her to take 50 million photos, and I'm like, what does she look like? What does she look like? Because I just have to know what she looks like. And she wouldn't say anything to me. My wife did get to cut the umbilical cord, and brought her over to me. When I seen her, that was like the best day of my life. So Ava was born November 25th at 3:28 p.m. She weighed 8 pounds, 1 ounce. She was 20 inches long. Let's see. She had what they call stork bites around her nose and eyes, as well as Mongolian spots. She still has Mongolian spots, which are like little dark spots, like dark patches on your skin. It's usually prevalent in African Americans, and they say Asians. She has them. She had a head full of hair. She still has a head full of hair. She was breastfed for a while. She latched on immediately afterwards. When I was sent to the recovery room, she did latch on. And of course, I wasn't producing milk at that time. I was producing colostrum. And it seemed like she was always hungry. And before even discharging from the hospital, my nipples were already raw, cracked, and bleeding. I did breastfeed for a good little minute, until but let me rewind. Okay, so I'm released to the recovery room. She's latched on. We're having our skin-to-skin bonding moment, kangarooing. I'm in love. I'm taking photos. Just a state of euphoria. Like, I am the happiest person in the world. Me and my wife are bonding with our new baby and everything. So while in recovery, they wouldn't allow me to eat or drink anything until my epidural wore off. After my epidural wore off, I was released to my room. And in my room, they wanted me to get up and walk around, go to the bathroom, which I was more than happy to do because I do not like having a catheter at all. I do not like the catheter, period. So I did go to the bathroom. I was up, walking, moving around about 2 hours after having the C-section. Now, me, I am very, very, very hard-headed. And I overdid it by the second day in there. like I was doing too much, and was refusing pain meds and was in excruciating pain by the second day. Excruciating pain. I was scared to take a shower because I was scared to get the incision wet. They tell you to lift up your stomach to, clean up under there and everything. It's painful. It was very, very tender, bruised, it's still bleeding a little bit. You just have to be careful because you didn't want to, open it back up. So they gave me a little squirting bottle where, I could put soap on there, and instead of, lifting it up, I could just squirt the bottle up under there to get out any dried blood, any betadine, anything that was left on the incision. Was discharged the third day. She passed all her tests perfectly fine. Hearing tests, the glucose test and everything. I don't know what other tests, because I was in and out of sleep every time they would come in there. They gave her first bath. I'm trying to think. I'm sorry, you guys. She did get her shots while she was in there. Her first set of shots, which was great. She did cry for a long time after that. It took a while for me to comfort her. She would not sleep in the little bassinet crib thing that they had for her at all. So the whole time that we were in the hospital, she slept on my chest, literally. And if she woke up in the middle of the night and she wanted to, feed, I would just pull my boob out and, pull her down to hold her like a football and breastfeed her. She is still like that to this day. She does not like to sleep in a crib, a bassinet, nothing. She likes to be right up under us. Hold on one moment. Call from Mitchell.